Music has the power to move us, but it can also move us to action. In this episode, we'll explore how students are using their creativity to incorporate social justice topics in their music classes.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives.
Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad to be here with you today. So, Kathryn, how's it going?
It's cold.
Well, it is winter, and I'm going to tell you, I think it's cold here in Arizona too.
Yes. Well, but how cold? Because we're talking Arizona and Illinois.
Okay. Well, it's like in the 50s.
Is it?
That's cold for my thin blood. It's not 112.
You're right. I mean, you've been telling me how often it has been so incredibly hot there. So I could get that then the change would feel very cold for you.
Yes. Okay. So
it's
how
like
cold is it in Illinois?
Yes. 28 feels like, something lower than that.
All right, fine. But there was a tiny bit of frost when I walked the dog this morning.
Well, you did say it was like, it didn't you say earlier like 30 degrees. So that's cold.
It was in the 30s. Cold. Yes. Okay. Oh, I know. I'll stop complaining. The sun is shining. It's nice here in Arizona. But what a good day, though, because we got to record podcast episodes. And it was fun because, we talk about this a little bit during the interview, but we actually connected with someone that both you and I have met in different contexts. I'm fortunate that Jasmine's here at ASU working on her PhD, and then you got to run into her as well. Right?
Yeah, at IMEC, almost basically a year ago. And what a fantastic person and educator. And she's going to do great things going to ASU as well.
Oh, yeah. And it was just really neat hearing her talk about, well, first of all, just her passion is it's so obvious, and how much she loves what she does and how much she loves working with her music students. But it was neat listening to her talk about this project where she was incorporating social justice because she made it seem so manageable. Sometimes we hear about these projects and it's just like, oh my goodness, I could never do that. But really, she kind of broke down the steps, talked about what the students were doing, and the students' excitement. It just seems like a win.
Yeah. And also just the power of working with other people, whether it is, like she mentioned, a university or but she said she worked within, the other teachers in her district down the street, and just how you can share ideas and use other people's, materials with their permission. But that is so helpful, right? Why do you always have to reinvent the wheel yourself? You don't. And, it's so great to be able to work with other people, and you really come up with way, way cooler things.
Yeah. And wasn't that the topic of episode 81? the power of working together, right? Which I promise we did not plan it that way. But yeah. But no, it's really, really evident. So it was neat to hear her talk about it. And again, just everything seemed very manageable. As she was talking as well, I was thinking about some of the resources that we have regarding recording studios. She was talking about students doing some simple recording, editing, things like that. And, Kathryn, you and I have both at various points had I'm going to say, quote unquote, recording studios in our classrooms.
Yeah.
But the students really enjoyed it. And we have some resources for that.
Yeah. Yeah, people really should check those out because it's, just listening to us, I think it just will give you some more ideas of what it could look like in your room, which is nice for the coffee club members, but also just a free checklist for anybody who wants to view, some basic ideas.
Right. So I'll put those links in the show notes. So again, you'll see the private podcast episode that's available to anyone who's a member of the coffee club, but then the checklist is free for everyone. So be sure to check those things out. So before we get to today's interview, we want to remind you that you can support Pass the Baton and get awesome perks.
Join the coffee club for as little as $2 a month and unlock discounts, free resources, planning parties, and more. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are really excited to be joined today by our guest, Jasmine Henderson. Jasmine, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, how about before we really jump into things, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us what you're up to these days in music education.
Yes. So my name is Jasmine Henderson. I am originally from the west side of the city of Chicago. Um, I earned my bachelor's and my master's from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I love, 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 love to sing. I love all things music. Um, I have been a part of a lot of musical organizations over the years, the Chicago Children's Choir, the University of Illinois Black Chorus, and have been able to do quite a few really awesome things with those organizations. And after graduating from U of I for the second time, I became a music teacher in the Champaign Unit 4 school district. And following that, I came to Arizona to pursue my PhD in music learning and teaching. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. And what did you teach when you were in the public school system?
Yes, I taught general music and choir. I taught K through 8.
Oh, awesome. That's such a fun age group. Some people might disagree, but I always loved it.
Yes, it was an elementary school and then a middle school, but during that conglomerate of time, those were the ages.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Theresa and I figured out a while ago that we both knew you because I had the chance of going to IMEC and seeing you present. And it was just funny. I'm like, oh, I have a guest that I think we really should talk to. And of course, Theresa knows you, which is great because now you're at ASU.
Yes, that is so cool.
Yeah. But the presentation I remember was the Social Justice Collage project, which was really, really cool. Can you kind of tell us what that was about a little bit and where the idea came from, maybe?
Yes, of course. So, after graduating from U of I and becoming a music teacher, I was able to keep some of my connections with the professors at the university in the music education program. And so when they were looking for people to host student teachers, I was able to host U of I students in my classroom during their student teaching experiences. And then also there were times when they offered classes for an entire group of students, and we just did a collaboration where they were able to kind of come into the classroom and be like a one-on-one mentor to a full classroom of kids. And it was really, really cool. So Adam Cruz is actually a professor at the university in Champaign, and we collaborated. We had this collaboration going on for a couple of years, and this particular year he asked if we could do some sort of interactive unit, and I thought that was a really, really cool idea. We came up with the idea that the U of I students could actually create a unit for my kids to do and enjoy, and I would help facilitate that, of course, in the classroom and also when they weren't there, but that they would be able to have some sort of a role where they're hands-on when they're in the classroom. So Adam and I got together and we kind of talked about what were some of the things at the time that the students were really passionate about. And me, I love my kids. I call my students my kids. And so we're always having conversations about what's going on in their life, things that are important to them. What are they seeing on the news? What's going on with their families? And so just brainstorming some things, we started to just jot down a few topics that we thought might be interesting to the kids. And from there, Adam took that and we kind of did like an umbrella kind of brainstorming session of what this unit could possibly look like. And he took it back to the U of I students for them to further that. And then I took the topics to my students and also kind of asked them like, hey, what do you guys think about these topics, without even saying anything about it having anything to do with music? I was just like, hey, what do you guys think about climate change? What do you guys think about gun violence? What do you all think about racial injustices? And of course, at the time, there's a lot happening in the racial climate within our society. And I serve primarily African American and Hispanic students. So there was a lot. This conversation that I had with them erupted in our classroom, in all of my classes, which was really, really cool. So from there, we kind of just determined how could we incorporate something that the students were passionate about and turn it into something musical. And so we decided that we would allow students to choose a topic, and from that topic we would find YouTube clips or like news clips that talk about a specific topic. So if we were talking about racial injustice, we would find a YouTube video or something, of course, that's appropriate for school. And we would do the work of chopping it, downloading it, chopping it up so that it be a sound bite. So what we offered then, and this is the job of the U of I students. So then what we offered the students, my kids in the classroom, once the sound bites were done, they got to choose their own social justice topic. They got to browse the different sound bites that were within the folder of the topic that they chose. And then they were able to further from there create some loops. We had been using Soundtrap, was like our big DAW software that we use a lot. And so my students were very familiar with it. So they chose an audio clip. They added some original sounds from the instrumental loops. And then they got the opportunity to create like a public service announcement, if you will. So they got to say 2 sentences at least about how they felt about the issue and what they felt could be a solution to the issue. And so all of those things put together created this project where students were able to have a sonic justice collage is what it was called. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love how, we talk about student ownership and all that stuff on this podcast. Not only were the students in your classroom taking ownership over something, but so were the student teachers, the university students. And I don't think we think about them quite as often as we should, these pre-service teachers. So I love all of the ways that so many different people were getting to have their voices heard in what you were describing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the most fun aspects of this project was that we did it with them. So I like to do that. I like to, any project that I'm doing with my kids, especially if it's something like this, I always do it with them so that I can give them an example of what does a finished part of whatever, piece that we're working on that day. What does it look like? And then how did I get there? And then that's how we kind of work through it in the classroom. But it is so much fun. And I got to be creative and to dig in my own creativity bag, while doing this as well. So it was really, really, really cool.
Yeah. I was kind of struck too with how authentic everything was. Because again, and from both sides, right, for the kids, because they were drafting or they were telling you topics that are very interesting, they're very passionate about. But also the college kids who are like, you're making a lesson, and most of the time in classes, right, you're making a lesson and maybe your classmate, your 8 or whatever 20-year-old classmates are also then doing the lesson with you, but it's not authentic, right? But they got to bring it into a real life classroom and kind of see a teacher roll it out. They got to be part of rolling that out, like that. All that stuff is so valuable, and probably you're going to take that unit with them into their own teaching careers, which is, just how they're going to use that one, right? They're not going to use the one they wrote for some random class assignment,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because they've gotten a chance to see how it works. And not only that, they've gotten to see in real time when you work with real people, there's something about real people. that's different than just being in the classroom or in your own classroom at the university.
Yeah.
Because as a university college student, you have skills in your mind and your body that you just know how to do. And if you don't know how to do something, you usually have the skills or the tools to figure it out. And so, but when you're working with younger kids and you get to see like what are their stumbling blocks, what are their insecurities, how does that affect their behaviors? How does that affect sometimes their self-esteem? How does all of that impact the work that they put into it? It's very valuable because then they're able to become a much well-rounded, a better well-rounded individual when it comes to being a teacher.
Yeah, this is awesome. Kathryn and I talk a lot about like different qualities of an empowered music student, and you're like hitting on all of them. It's like everything wrapped into one, because we're talking about at the beginning how students had a voice in this process. They were able to share the different things that they were passionate about, that you gave them choices throughout. They're being creative. And just the fact that like they're connecting it to something they're passionate about. I don't know. I'm struck by how great it is that you were able to do all these different things. And can I ask real quick, was this a general music class? Was this what kind of class was it that you were working with?
Yes, this was a general music class. And when we did this, it started off with my older group. So I think this was my 8th grade group who initially did it. But once I realized, I was like, no, I can do this with the younger groups. So, and even if I couldn't do the exact project, I was able to kind of adjust things for the younger groups. But I thought it was so valuable and they were so invested. The projects, I'm really going to try to get access to my teacher account, which I don't have anymore. I'm a PhD student, but they were really invested and they came up with some really great products. And one of the other things I wanted to say that I thought was so cool when you're giving student choice is sometimes, so at the end of the projects, we would always do a listening party. And so completely rearrange the entire room. We have snacks. We turn it into like an album listening party sort of situation. Yeah. And we changed the aesthetics of the room. And but each student was able to have like a sheet where we do positive feedback. We talk about, because you still want to make sure, did you understand like what were the intricate pieces that I really wanted you to understand how to do and using this project to teach it to you. So they were able to write out their thoughts and on each one. And then we were able to vote on the ones, because they rated them 1 through 5, each one anonymously. So no one knew whose was being played. And that person, whomever won the highest ratings, won an award, won a prize. Mm-hmm. And so it was really cool. And it was a really awesome way for students to also give peer-to-peer feedback to one another as well.
Yeah. And when they were sharing their collages at the listening, did they, as a composer, share more about how they made it? Or because you said you wrote it on a piece of paper, but did the kids get to hear what they came up with in the sense of like how they came up with something?
Got you. So the what they were writing down wasn't an explanation of their own project. Oh. It was because sometimes when you have idle time.
Oh yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
So, but the purpose of the paper was to do several things. And I have let me see. I'll share this stuff with you all so that you can see it and possibly upload if someone wants to use it. But students were able to critique other students.
I see.
So as we were listing anonymously, there would be song number 1. And so for song number 1, they had to say what was something that you really loved about this song. What was something that if you could make an edit or a tweak to it, what would you add or what would you take away? Mm-hmm. And then given on a scale of 0 to 5, what would you rate this in terms of did this person follow the expectations of the assignment, and also to your own aesthetic, to your own, how pleasing was it to you? And so once we were able to do that for all of them, anonymously, then we were able to go back and count up all of the ratings. But the students were given a survey at the end of the project where they were able to speak about what they did and why they did it. It wasn't done in a like a public display. It was just a survey to the teacher.
Yeah, I could say, but either way, whether they share publicly or the kids, having something to do while they're listening, I'm sure they were like, "Ooh, I never thought to do that." Yeah. Oh gosh, so and that's great for every learner in the room to just get some more ways to try something and to express themselves. So that's good. Keeps them busy, but it also gives them some more things for another time.
Yeah, and it gives you the opportunity as a teacher to really, really hype up your students. So I tell my kids all the time, I'm your number one fan. I mean, nobody's going to top me, okay? And so whenever one of them plays their music, they all get so excited because you're like, oh, so good, and you're jamming to their song, and we're clapping for them, and we're giving them accolades, and so it really makes the other students like excited to share. And I'm like, don't tell anyone which one is yours. Okay. This is supposed to be anonymous. But then afterwards, sometimes we go back and we replay them because the kids, they get excited when they know that their peers loved it. And so it's another opportunity to create community in the classroom as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And there's just sounds like so many good things came of this. Did you notice students like continuing any of the skills or any of the things they tried? Did it ever show up later in what they did?
Yes. So actually I have several students who, after we were done with because in general music, I try to hit a lot of different things. We do instrument units, we do technology units, we try to do a lot of different things. And so when we're done with our technology unit, sometimes I have to, the way that the district set it up is we have a certain amount of seats for our students. And so when we're done with the group, we're supposed to reallocate the seats to someone else in the district who could use those seats. But some of my students were really asking me, could they keep Soundtrap so that they were making their own songs?
Yeah.
And some of my students from there, they went further and they found out about other DAWs. And so some of them are like creating like real stuff. I had a parent reach out to me, one of my students, telling me if I could help him to figure out how to do some recording on his workstation that he just found. And I said, his workstation? He like went further. He was so interested in it that he like took it so seriously. He has his own laptop. He has his own DAW station. He has his own recording equipment. And now he's like creating his own music. And I was like, that is really cool.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's it, right? We're helping students find these tools and these passions that they can continue when they leave us. And I think that is it. I really love it. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Well, something earlier you had mentioned was that, when you were doing this, a lot of things were happening in the world where kids were then very passionate about responses. And unfortunately, the world hasn't changed. There's still a lot of stuff going on in our world. But what would you say to a music teacher who's like maybe just starting projects like this and might be a little bit hesitant or worried about a project like this? Is there any suggestions you would give them or tell them?
So one of the things that I have heard many music teachers talk about is the support that they may or may not receive from their admin. I was very fortunate that my admin, they were the best, the best, the best, the best. Shout out to Franklin STEAM Academy.
That's awesome.
They are family for life. But one of the things that I value as a teacher is my students. Student-centered first. And so my job as a music teacher is to teach musical concepts. But then I also believe that we use the things that students are most passionate about and can relate to teach those things. And you have a really great chance of them being successful with the material that you are trying to get them to learn. And so for me, for anyone who is struggling to figure out, like, should I do this or should I not do this? Some suggestions might be choosing 2 to 3 topics to start off with, and then allowing a fourth option if students don't want to do this topic, but they have something else that they're passionate about and they want to bring to the table. Then you, as on case by case basis, can allow or not allow that student to pursue that particular topic. For me, we created maybe 6 or 7 topics, ranging from everything from LGBTQ rights to healthcare, food insecurity. There's so many things that we talked about. And even still, I've had students who were passionate about something else. Mm-hmm. And so they asked me if they could do something else. And I was like, of course. Mm-hmm. Sure. Why not? Yeah. So if you're someone who feels like you're a little hesitant to pick something, I would explain what social justice is and what social injustice is, so that students have an understanding of what it is that they're doing and they're not just picking something just for the sake of picking it. Mm-hmm. And then I would still give choices, but give them also the choice to choose something different. That might create more work for you as a teacher, but if it's about your kids, then it's okay.
Yeah. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a little bit of extra work up front to make the experience more valuable and rich for the students is always worthwhile. And because, as you said, they're going to be more invested in it as soon as it's something they care about.
And also, I think what a cool part of this project was students had the opportunity to either work with a partner or work separately. So that's another aspect. Sometimes they get more invested when they're working with someone who is like-minded with them. And then you have students who are like, no, I don't want to work with anybody. Let me alone, please.
I know that feeling.
Yes, but giving them that option is another sort of like freedom within the classroom. Mm-hmm. Because it lets students know that it's okay. Whatever I choose, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you're showing them that you trust them to make a decision that's going to be best for them. Mm-hmm. Right. You're recognizing that not everyone wants to have a partner, but other students, they feel more comfortable that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when you have the partner situations, they have to start navigating, how are we going to make decisions? How are we going to, so it's not one. I don't think one is easier or harder. I think they both have their challenges.
And the way that I like to do things, because when I do partners in my classroom, it's not 2 people get to do half the work. Everybody gets their own grade. Everybody is responsible for doing the same amount of work. And so truly, when you're working with a partner, you just have a comrade mm-hmm. to work alongside, but you all have the same amount of work to do. You all still have, so essentially when you're working with partners, your project may be much longer because mm-hmm. you're working with partners. There may be some aspects where we kind of condense, but for the most part, everybody is still responsible for their own grade. Therefore, when you have students who may not show up to class, or they're not at school that day, or their partner doesn't have to worry about, I won't get a good grade because my partner's not here, because you can still do your own project.
Oh, that's good. That's a good way to think about it. I love it. So this is obviously a big project, right? Something that's going to take probably several weeks. What did you?
Yes. Well, doing it with U of I, we did it over the course of a quarter.
Okay.
And we stretched it that way just because they came in once a week. And so we wanted to make sure that we were strategic about what they were going to be doing when they did come into our classroom. So so the way that I structured my class, I would do like a Wednesdays was our work day. Thursdays was our day to when U of I would come into the classroom. Fridays was our day to make any edits or whatever we were working on Thursday to finish that up. But our Wednesday was like anything that we didn't get done that needs to be done before U of I gets here. But then Monday and Tuesday, I reserved that for a different unit. So we just did something different. When U of I in quarters, when they were not here and I just did the unit, it just ran like a regular unit. So a couple of weeks, usually about 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And what you're telling me there is that we don't have to have a university partnership to make this work. It's certainly nice, but if someone doesn't have that,
you do not need to do it. I mean, you do not need to have a U of I or a university partnership to be successful at something like this. Yeah.
I could see though, like me being interested and a coworker across district or whatever, and then we can pool resources together too. So like you could, and we have our own classes, but we could kind of help each other that way too, where it was not necessarily university students helping us, but just another like-minded person.
Yes, and one of the really cool things, U of I actually did the partnership collaboration with my school and 2 other schools, the other 2 middle schools as well. So the 3 music teachers, we got together often to talk about our own units and things that we would be doing, because this happened to be a unit that we did collaborate to create with U of I. But outside of that, usually we just use our own units.
Yeah.
And U of I just kind of comes in, we explain to them what we're doing and sort of that situation. But yeah, you could get together with other music teachers and talk about it together. We had an entire what is it called? A Google Drive folder with like all of our units. And sometimes we used each other's units.
Yeah.
And if we didn't know how to do it, we reached out to each other because we're right up the street. So
yeah.
It was very, 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 it was a good experience for us because and a lot of the units that we had, we created them. They just came out of our own creativity and thoughts. And what do we want to do in the classroom, and what resources do we have in the classroom to do said things with? So,
yeah, that's awesome. So when we wrote Pass the Baton, one of the things that we did was at the end of each chapter, we had a section called Things to Do Tomorrow, or Things You Can Try Tomorrow, because we felt like sometimes we were offering these huge ideas and it's like, I don't know where to start. But if we could give people just something small and actionable, that first step, it would be helpful. So on that note, what do you have as a suggestion? What could people try tomorrow, or, when they go back in the classroom next week? Any ideas?
When you go into the classroom next week or tomorrow, I would suggest doing a simple activity to get to know your kids. Something that I do before I even start anything musical in my classroom, the first week, 2 weeks, is just get to know you. It's just have fun. It's just build community. That could look like an icebreaker. That could look like doing a digital vision board where you ask them. That's something that I did in my classroom, where I asked students and then we shared it on the screen and we introduced one another to ourselves. That could look like creating a musical playlist. That could look like just doing your favorite things. What's your favorite song? What's your favorite snack? What's your favorite color? Sorts of things, because you learn so much about your students And then you also learn things that they don't tell you as well. You can learn who's the shy one, who's the one who's most willing to go first, who's most willing to be helpful, who's going to be your number one volunteer, who's going to be the one who sits in the back and kind of maybe needs a push. So you're gathering information about your students and in a genuine way, so where they know that you care about them. And above anything else, I care about you as a human being. I'm here to teach you music, but I'm here to teach human beings music. Mm-hmm. So my suggestion would be to do something that allows you to get to know your students a little bit more and allow them to get to know you as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important. And I think it's something that we can't just do on the first day of school and then forget about. We need to continue.
Oh no. Yes, it's so important. Like after every unit, I teach my students the idea of recovering well. If they feel like they didn't do their best on their units, there's always an opportunity to recover well. And just if you didn't do something, to the best of your ability this time, it doesn't mean that it won't be done better the next time. And we do Music Genius Awards. So after every single unit, we acknowledge one another and we celebrate each other. And we do that after every unit so that students have the opportunity to recover well and to build their confidence. And we build community that way. That is really, really important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's just such a good reminder for all of us, all points in the year.
Yeah. Well, again, like Theresa said, thank you so much for being here with us. Like, this has been awesome. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about your work or just ask you a question?
Yes, you can reach out to me via my email. It's jas.d.henderson, that would be HENDERSON @gmail.com. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you so much. We loved this. It's so good connecting with you. And we can't wait to hear what else comes of your work in the PhD program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so nice to meet you, Miss Kathryn. And thank you for having me, Theresa.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.